contrôler chimiquement vos états de conscience.
Has to do with the complexity of the brain and why sometimes people are perfectly normal and boring, and sometimes they flower and burst out and then collapse.
I love doing science. I get enormous pleasure out of it, and I love collecting art.
The complexity of the brain.
On arrive à pouvoir imaginer, mais sans rêver, en étant très près de la réalité future, une véritable médecine où on va faire régénérer des organes.
You're bound to ask the question, how does the brain respond to works of art? Yeah, but again, we're very much at the beginning of this. This is very primitive.
C'est de suivre ce qui se passe. Parce que la science, c'est quelque chose, c'est une communauté. On continue jusqu'à la fin de notre vie.
The importance of conversation can't possibly be exaggerated because it is the bulwark against perpetual violence. It's the bulwark against murder. It's the bulwark against war. It's the only thing keeping those things out of our daily experience. All the progress we've made to arrive at anything like a universal conception of human flourishing and scientific rationality, all of that has been a matter of getting rid of dogma and having an open-ended and intellectually honest conversation based on facts and arguments. Really, the sky is the limit in terms of how good we can make human life on the basis of our understanding how the world works, and to cancel the truly unconscionable disparities in good and bad luck we see in this world.
Again, we're very much at the beginning of this. This is very primitive.
de FEMTO-ST, c'est la capacité de transformer la pluridisciplinarité en interdisciplinarité, c'est-à-dire la capacité de faire travailler des domaines scientifiques ensemble.
L'objectif, c'est d'essayer de trouver une nouvelle solution pour détecter et guérir les cancers mortels.
Now, it's often said that science cannot give us a foundation for morality and human values because science deals with facts, and facts and values seem to belong to different spheres. It's often thought that there's no description of the way the world is that can tell us how the world ought to be. But I think this is quite clearly untrue. But values are a certain kind of fact. They are facts about the well-being of conscious creatures.
Fundamental question of anybody who's concerned about the social misery or socially induced forms of suffering is, what kind of human being are you going to choose to be in your brief trek from your mama's womb to? And it ought to have something to do with integrity, honesty, decency, and virtue. I would go as far as to say that our society is ubiquitous commodification, marketization, commercialization across the board. If you're fundamentally committed to aspiring to integrity, honesty, decency, and virtue, it already makes you countercultural. It already makes you counter-hegemonic. In the face of catastrophe, We try to sustain a quest for integrity, honesty, decency, and virtue. We all fall short. But Beckett is right. Try again, fail better. Try again, fail better before you go to the worms. And he raised those 4 questions. How shall integrity face oppression? What does honesty do in the face of deception? What does decency do in the face of insult? And how does virtue meet brute force?
La science vient du terme scientia, qui signifie savoir. L'objectif de la science est toujours de chercher la vérité.
En Franche-Comté, on s'aperçoit qu'on a une très forte réactivité, un niveau d'ingénierie et de technicité très élevé qui permet en fait à la plateforme d'apparaître d'ores et déjà comme une plateforme de référence.
On a beaucoup de contacts directs avec des échanges de personnel de manière à bien mixer toutes les idées scientifiques et toutes les applications et développements techniques que l'on peut avoir entre les recherches fondamentales qui sont conduites ici pour une translation vers des aspects cliniques et vers la pratique de demain.
Your experience of being a self, the specific experience of being you, is also a controlled hallucination generated by the brain.
made a vow right at the beginning that whatever I'm doing, even if it's a scientific paper, I will not resort to jargon. And storytelling, I think, is in my blood. There's no point confronting them, arguing with them, pointing fingers, telling them they're bad or stupid or whatever. Tell them stories. I feel it's important to reach the heart, to let people feel, because if you want change, people must change from within. That's real change.
faut signaler que nous sommes la première plateforme de Franche-Comté à obtenir ce label.